EA Sports F1 2001 would focus on the events from the Formula 1 season of that year. It would release on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2001 itself. But don't get it confused with the other Formula 1 2001 game that also released under Sony themselves, which would have been published and developed by Studio Liverpool and 989 Sports. A lot of people might get confused as to which is which, but just know that there are two games with similar names that were released in that year, but one was under Electronic Arts, one was under Sony themselves. Port was supposed to be planned for the GameCube but was cancelled for unknown reasons. And like many of the other Formula 1 games that also would have been released from EA, even as far back as the PlayStation 1, the game focuses on the season from that year, where there's a variety of different modes, even training modes, to improve the driver's skills and usability of the experience, but will also allow you to unlock new modes and new features to allow for adaptability within the gameplay so that you can compete at a high level throughout each of the seasons. So you'll have practice modes, qualifying sessions, and the races itself that contribute to a whole single race weekend or custom championships in order to win the F1 title and become the dominant driver within the season. When the game was released, it did receive fairly good reviews across the board. It was highly regarded, being seen as one of the better F1 titles out there. And the fact is that it was one of the first F1 games to be released on the system alongside of the other one like I mentioned. They were good solid titles and they were really good solid experience for anyone that was an F1 fan or even just a racing game fan in general. There's a lot here to keep you involved with the gameplay. Fast paced, it's dynamic. You can play the game in your own way. If you want to play in a more simulation focused format, you can do that. You have to make sure that you understand the layouts of the tracks, understand the racing lines to get the best out of the situation, know when to race and overtake cars, use slipstreams to gain advantage at high speeds, know when to corner, when to take or accelerate out of corners, know when to brake. You have to have your wits about you, very much like the real thing. So these games will test your skill in reserve to see how good of a driver you can really be. But with practice and patience, it will definitely show and you will improve. If anything, these games are a good alternative to other racers that would have been seen during that time, especially if you wanted more of a realistic approach. But even if you're just a Formula 1 fan like I am, these games were a solid experience. If anything, the PS1 era and the PS2 era I think have the most distinctive and probably the most memorable Formula 1 games ever made. Yes, newer games in the franchise in the PS3, PS4 and PS5, like they are really good solid games, but there's so many rules and regulations and tweaks and changes to the gameplay to try and make it too realistic to a point that in some cases, sometimes you simply just want to get into the game and just play it and just drive the cars. But a lot of newer games don't allow you to do that because you have to do this and you have to do this and do this and then you have to do through multiple different things before you can even just get started with the game, which can put a lot of people off. There really is just something unique about the simplicity of older games. They do have the modes there if you want to get more involved, but they do have other modes that if you just simply want to pick up the game and just play it as it is, you can do that also. And I think that's what adds to the appeal. And these older games are just as much fun to play now as ever. Even considering recording this video, this game is as good as over 23 years old and it's still a solid experience. Very well put together. It just shows you the level of detail that was put together during the development stages to make these games as good as they are. They're just as much fun today as ever. Right, they did become more refined and polished in future entries that would release on the console, but for its time they were very, very good racing games. Definitely worth a go in my book. I would recommend you do give it a try, especially if you're a Formula 1 fan. But it will be interesting to see your thoughts on this and what do you think of it overall. Are you a fan of these earlier F1 games, or which of these two games from that year did you like? Did you like the EA Sports one or maybe the other one? It will be interesting to see which side you're on with regards to the games, or did you like them both? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around more Formula 1 games that was released on the PlayStation 2, which believe me there are quite a lot of them, then I've covered a load of them previously in this playlist that you can check right here.